Hello everyone, this is Dr. Garima, one of the mentors of StudyMedic, and today we are going to kickstart your MRCOG Part 1 preparation with a Kickstart series initiated by StudyMRCOG. Today the module that I will be covering will be on data interpretation, and we will be covering how would you interpret the urodynamic graphs. So it is a very important exam tested question where they give you certain graphs and ask you to interpret the graph, and you have to tell whether it is a stress urinary incontinence or reducer overactivity, or is it a normal graph. So I'll be telling you simple tips and tricks how you identify these kinds of graphs and how you go about it. So let's start with a quote that we feel that life is very difficult, and the problem lies in it is because we do not appreciate the things that come our way very easily. So from today, let us start appreciating the small little things that are done to make our life easy. So what all topics will we be covering in this data interpretation? We'll be learning what is urodynamics, what are the components of it, what are the indications of doing urodynamic studies, how does a normal graph look like, and what are the abnormalities and how do you interpret them. So certain tips and tricks about this module. So you have to be thorough with the literature available. We have top articles on this and strategy reading material on this. So go through it and be thorough with it, and like once you are thorough with the concepts, I'm sure you'll be able to solve all the questions related to this module. You have to make last minute revision notes, and the basic funda to succeed in this MRCOG preparation is that you have to reread and revise again and again. So starting with what is urodynamics. So urodynamics, it includes all the measurements that assess the function and the dysfunction of the lower uterine tract abnormalities by any appropriate method, which includes cystometry and pressure flow studies. There are certain indications of doing urodynamics. You do not go and do urodynamic studies in every patient because it is an invasive testing. So there are certain specific indications which you have to remember, which can be asked in your exam. So the first indication is urge predominant mixed urinary incontinence, or when urinary incontinence is, the type is unclear, that you're not sure what kind of incontinence it is, or if there are symptoms which are suggestive of voiding dysfunction, or if there is anterior or apical prolapse, or if there is a history of previous surgery for stress urinary incontinence. Now, what does urodynamics consist of? It consists of uroflowmetry with post-void residual urine monitoring. It is a non-invasive testing. Then it includes transurethral cystometry, which has a filling and the voiding phase, pressure flow studies, and it also includes certain complex tests like video urodynamics, urethral pressure profilometry, and ambulatory urodynamics. So these are all which is included in the urodynamics. What we will be covering today will include uroflowmetry graphs and the cystometry graphs. So starting with uroflowmetry. So how is this uroflowmetry done? So patient, whether it's a male or a female, they are asked to void on a machine, and you get some graph like this. So it's a bell-shaped graph, and what does it give? It gives you the flow rate, it gives you the time, gives you the maximum flow rate, average flow rate, and the area is a voided volume. So what all do you see? You see how much the urine is voided, what is the rate of the flow in seconds, length of the time to complete the void. So uroflowmetry, it is a simple non-invasive test where a female is asked to void into a flow meter, and you get a graph something of this sort. It is a continuous bell-shaped graph that, as you can see it from here, and the Qmax, which is the maximum flow rate, is 20 to 36 ml per second. To obtain this graph, the minimum amount of urine that should be voided should be around 200 cc. So this I have already explained. Then what are the patterns of uroflowmetry with description? So this is just the uroflowmetry graph. So usually I told you it should be a bell-shaped curve. However, sometimes if you see several peaks in the Qmax, like in this case, it can be caused by repeated Valsalva maneuvers, straining leading to fluctuating and intermittent stream, and the possible causes of this are bladder outflow obstruction or unsustained detrusor contractions. Sometimes there can be reduced Qmax, like in this case where you see a rapid upstroke with the Qmax which is reduced, and then there is a plateau and then it comes down. So this is seen if there is a urethral stricture or external urethral compression or bladder outflow tract obstruction. So any kind of obstruction from outside. So that's why the full amount of urine cannot come out. So it could be associated with prolapse following continence surgery or failure of bladder neck relaxation, or as an acontractile bladder, acontractile detrusor. And sometimes you get very high Qmax. This is again if there is possible detrusor overactivity or high speed squirting to overcome an obstruction. Now, if you would be, how the questions are asked in this, you would be given a graph and you will have to interpret. So first you have to figure out what kind of graph it is. So this you see, it's a uroflowmetry graph where the flow rate is plotted against time. And you see the Qmax here is reduced. So the interpretation what you will give is it is an abnormal flow pattern where the flow is continuous, it is prolonged and Qmax is reduced. So what are the possible differential diagnoses in this case? It could be because of obstruction, possibly a cystocele resulting in urethral thinking, or hypocontractile bladder. Then again this graph where you see multiple peaks, okay, and Qmax is reduced. So what is the interpretation? So here the flow is intermittent where the urine stream starts and stops, and the differential diagnosis of this is bladder outflow tract obstruction. Now this was about the uroflowmetry graphs. Now coming to cystometry graph. So cystometry graph, you get three graphs like this as you can see, and this is the voiding graph which is the uroflowmetry graph. So what all you see here, so you have three pressures that you get in this P vesicle, that is a vesical bladder pressure, P detrusor and P abdominal. So how do you get this abdominal pressure? For this the catheter is placed in, so you can see here there is a catheter which is placed in the rectum to get the P abdominal pressure. P vesical pressure, there is a catheter which is placed in the bladder. Detrusor is obtained by subtracting P vesicle from P abdominal. So what is the importance of it? So when the patient coughs, usually there is increase in abdominal pressure which increases the vesical pressure, but detrusor pressure generally doesn't increase, so there is no leakage. However, in case there is any kind of stress urinary incontinence where there is leakage because of the changes in the detrusor pressure. So this is how you record it. So I'll just repeat it once again. You have three types of pressures: P vesicle, P detrusor, P abdominal. For P vesicle, the catheter is placed in the bladder. For P abdominal, it is placed in the rectum. P detrusor you cannot calculate directly. You have to get it by subtracting P vesicle from P abdominal. And this is the voiding. This is the uroflowmetry graph. So this is how you get it. Then what are the normal values? So normal P vesicle is 5 to 50 centimeter of water, P abdominal is again 5 to 50 centimeter of water, and P detrusor, it is obtained by subtracting P vesicle from P abdominal, and it is 5 to 15 centimeter of water. To obtain, like if you have to rule out any kind of abnormality, so when you are doing this test, cystometry, when you put the catheter, you carry out certain provocation maneuvers. So what are these? The patient, during this bladder filling phase, the patient is asked to cough every minute to assess recording quality. So what happens is this should produce an acute and equal rise in P abdominal and P vesicle. So both P abdominal and P vesicle rise, but there is no change in the P detrusor pressure, and hence there is no leakage. So these provocation maneuvers to elicit the patient's symptoms are performed throughout the test, And this may include heel bouncing, jogging, listening to running water, washing hands, cuffing or refilling the bladder in various positions or with a cooled medium at a faster rate. These are then annotated on the cystometrogram. So you have to record it on the cystometrogram. Now, 4 symptoms to be marked or annotated. So the first one is, when does the patient has the first sensation of bladder filling? So this is when the moment the patient feels that the bladder is no longer empty. Then the second thing that you have to record is FD, which is first desire to void. It is the moment that normally tells the patient to go to the toilet without any hurry at the next convenient moment. So the next thing is SD, or strong desire to void, which is equal to maximum cystometric capacity. So it is the moment the patient, without any pain or fear of losing urine, will not postpone. Now it is a time where the patient doesn't he cannot postpone the voiding and has to visit the nearest toilet, because if the patient doesn't do that, there is a fear of pain or losing urine. And the last is feeling of urgency or fear of leaking or pain or any other symptoms. So these are the 4 things that have to be annotated on the graph. Then these are important values. They can be asked in your exam. So usually the first sensation to void, it occurs at 150 when the bladder is filled to 150 to 250 ml. Strong desire to void occurs between 400 to 600 ml. Detusor filling pressure is usually less than 15 centimeter of water. Detusor voiding pressure is less than 70 centimeter of water. Peak flow rate is 20 to 40 ml per second. Flow time is 15 to 20 seconds. Voided volume is usually 220 to 320 ml. Residual volume is residual volume is the volume which remains in the bladder even after passing urine, and it is usually less than 50 ml. Now coming over to the graph. So this is how the normal the graph looks like. So they can give you a question like this. They'll give you a graph and they'll ask you to interpret. So what do you see here? So you first see the first one is the P vesical pressure. The second one is the P abdominal pressure. And then the third one is the P detrusor pressure, the green one. And this is the voiding graph, which looks like more or less bell shaped. Now CG is cuff. Okay, so CG and FD, as you can see, is the first desire to void, which for this patient is around, if you can see, it is around 375, which is okay, and strong desire is around 400, which is also okay, SD. So this is what you see. And when the patient is coughing, there is increase in P abdominal and P vesical, but P detrusor is same and there is no leakage. So this is a normal graph. So why? Because when the patient is coughing, P vesical and abdominal pressure are increasing, but there is no change in detrusor pressure. So this is how a normal thing happens. So when you cough, what happens? Your abdominal pressure increases and there is increase in P vesical pressure. But since there is no change in detrusor pressure, there is no leakage. So this is what a normal graph looks like, and even the voiding uroflowmetry graph is also normal. It looks like a bell-shaped graph. So it has a filling and the voiding phase. Now again, this graph you see here, so the first one, blue is P vesical, then red is P abdominal and green is P detrusor. But here when the patient is coughing, so as you can see here, when the patient is coughing, so there is increase in detrusor also, okay, and the voiding graph looks normal. Okay, so so this is abnormal. Ideally the detrusor pressure should not rise. So this graph is looks like detrusor overactivity. So here the filling and voiding cystogram shows unprovoked rise in detrusor pressure. Even without coughing also there is rise in the detrusor pressure, as you can see here. Okay, ideally it should not happen, and detrusor overactivity can be associated with a leak, or since they've not mentioned about any leakage, so it can be with leak or without leak. So the diagnosis of this, since there is unprovoked rises in the detrusor activity, this blue arrows as we can see, and there are like the patient is having, like even at lower volumes, she's having strong desire to pee. Okay, so this is a case of detrusor overactivity. Then the next graph of see, in this again, this there is increase in the P vesicle pressure, and there is no increase, unprovoked increase in P vesicle and P detrusor pressure, and there is leakage as well, as a detrusor pressure is rising and there is no rise in the abdominal pressure. So this again is detrusor overactivity with leak. Okay, so so this looks like, or you can call it, detrusor overactivity is in terms of how you interpret. You also call it urge incontinence. So in urge incontinence, there will be rise in P vesicle and P detrusor pressure. However, there will be no change in the P abdominal pressure. And not all cases, like the previous graph which I showed, there was no leak in that. However, in this there is a leakage. So not all cases of detrusor overactivity will have a leak. Then moving over to the next graph. So here you can see that when the P vesicle is rising, P abdominal is also rising. When the P abdominal is rising, P vesicle is also rising, but there is no rise in detrusor. So this is absolutely normal. This is what should happen. However, but with the rise in P vesicle, there is leakage, which should not happen. Okay, so this is probably the patient is coughing here, which is causing rise in the P vesicle and P abdominal and causing leak, and this condition is called as urodynamic stress incontinence, or SUI. So this looks like urodynamic stress incontinence, where there is change in, you can simply remember it with a trick, that here the P abdominal and P vesicle is changing and there is a leak, and there is no change in the P detrusor pressure. So the next graph that you can see here is this graph where there is change, like red one is the P abdominal, light blue is P vesicle, and pink is P detrusor. So here when there is change in P vesicle and change in P detrusor, no change in P abdominal. So this looks like detrusor overactivity. So this is what happens in detrusor overactivity. So this was all about the graphs that we had to discuss. So if you have any doubts and any questions on this topic, you can write it in the comment section. And for more such videos, do subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for your time.